Hi, I'm Heath Weaver, and I talk to senior executives or executives, people who've been working for a while, founders who have a couple decades of experience and want to go further with AI and just haven't been able to get to where they want to with it. Today, I want to talk about that you're not using AI correctly. If and I want to get into that in some depth especially for more senior people. If you're a developer, if you are young and really love technology and on top of all these things, this is not for you. You can listen, but it won't be particularly useful. It's really towards people who are having a problem adopting these kind of technologies. So let me jump into that now. I was my wife. She's a doctor. She's a OBGYN. She's working on important research right now around it for ultrasound, and so she was looking at she was using ChatGPT, and I was helping her with her research and just kind of like looking into that a little bit. And I was really surprised by how she was using the AI. I shouldn't be surprised. I've worked with enough people on this, and I've been around it enough to kind of see how people are often working with it. But it's still surprising. So the thing that surprised me was just that like when she was in there, she was like not getting a good result. And so I looked at her conversation history with AI, and I could see immediately why this was not getting the result that she wanted. And the primary thing that she was doing wrong was just the way that she started the conversation, where she was thinking about it, the way that she just was interacting with the AI. It was like clear that was going to give a poor result. She's very smart, and it's very logical what she was doing, but it's right at this point, it's really not that way of approach on it won't work. So let me come back to that, and I'll get into a little bit more depth into this. So I want to talk a little bit about just if you have not had a good experience with AI, if you've tried it and you're like, this sucks, or this is not very good, or I'm not convinced type thing, like, okay, fair enough, but you just need to get rid of that thought. Just get rid of it. This is similar to a lot of transformations that we've had. You could think of this like as the same as the invention of electricity. Like when it started, and the first homes were wired, like who knows how many of them burnt down, but probably plenty. Who knows how many problems that people had, and it probably seemed a little bit gimmicky. But people looking at it are saying like, okay, this is going to be a big deal, And then it took time for all industries and houses and everything to be connected to the grids, and to everything to be able to run on electricity. And then like what you could do with that became, it's just become something which has changed the whole world in so many countless ways. Internet's kind of the same type of thing. People were faster to jump on the internet, and then there was the bubble around it, and like all these promises that weren't realized. But eventually, the internet has changed the world, and it's one of the most significant things that in human history, and it continues to change the world. AI is that, and it's like. It's even more, it's so much, it's such an important thing to have basically a 200 IQ in your pocket, like to have like almost unlimited amounts of intelligence for anything that you're working on. But with that right now, where it is, there's certain ways that you need to look at that and to think about that and to work with it. And I'll get into that in some detail for you. But really, when you look at like this change that's happening, that your job is certainly at risk if your thought process is like, oh, I've tried AI and it didn't work. And it's not because AI is going to take over. It's going to be because somebody who knows how to use AI is going to take your job. Let me give you a couple of examples of where I've seen this personally. So first of all, I did art when I was young, like at school. I did a lot of. I thought that I might end up somewhere in the art field. And so I was always interested in technology. I was always thought that those things were fascinating, and I had a computer very early and those kind of things. But mainly because I was using art, it was more like the art programs that I was like looking at. I took some of those early computer aided art courses at university. But the main thing that I saw in there is that there was like a lot of resistance from people who were doing traditional art or art in a traditional way in the graphic design area and those kind of things that would, who as the computers hadn't really taken over that yet. And so those people, like where are they now? They might, there might be some market for, traditional types of art that I'm sure that exists. But for the most part, if those people didn't adopt the computer driven design and didn't use the design tools, then they're out of jobs. Now I've worked with some very, very great designers, and they were like almost all of them I've ever worked with were absolutely fantastic with the Adobe tools. Like they knew how to use them. They knew everything that they could do. They knew all the shortcuts. They knew how to use them fast, and they would get into their creative zone. But the tool, they had a mastery over the tool. And some of the best designers I've seen, they were the best at using those. Now, same thing for me when I started out. One of my early jobs was at Sony. I was a financial analyst and became a manager there, and worked on the $1 billion like VIO portfolio. And one of the things that really set me apart early on in my career was my ability to use Excel. So just like I sat down with a book on it very early in my career. I just thought like, look, I really want to figure out how to use that. And I read, this, whatever it was, 800 or 900 page manual, and practice until I learned how to use it, because that was like really relevant for me. I use it every day. So that gave me even advantage over the more senior people in the company who didn't really know how to use Excel that well. They were okay with it, but nowhere near where I was. So they would come to me and they would ask me, how do I do these things, and how do I set this up, and how do I create that? And it allowed me to be part of some really important projects in the company, and kind of catapulted my career inside of there. So those people that didn't know how to use Excel, and then like that they went on, but they had to get better and better on it. But those people that are coming up now, which are using statistical programs and who are using AI to do these things, they are going to displace those people. They just will, like in all of these industries. And the more that they can do that and become more and more senior, the more risk there is for those people that are already in those senior finance jobs, who know a lot about finance and who have a lot of experience, but just simply can't use the tools. So what I think, as a senior executive or as an executive or a founder or somebody who has some experience and who's been working for a while, you need to be thinking about, like, first of all, how can you do more things yourself and not need to rely on the people around you as much. You're probably very busy with a lot of things, managing people, and a lot of your work is not, let's say, maker work, or that as a creator is like, it's a lot of times managing the people in there. But even within that, like when you have to ask a team to run an analysis for you that you could just as easily have AI do and get a better result on it, or let's say you want to research on a particular topic where Google Gemini and their deep research tool is fantastically good. It's like amazingly good. Like you can let that thing run for 5 to 10 minutes and get like kind of know what the state of the art of a particular topic is, for whatever question you might have. So those type of things, like there's no reason to be asking your team to do that kind of thing, or for even them to be running that for you when you can just do it directly yourself. And that's kind of what you want to get to, is you've got it. You're gonna have to put the time in to learn these tools, and I'd love to help you with that. I'd love to help give you some projects so you can kind of see that a little bit of time a day will very, very quickly catapult you to the top of what you need to know in AI. But you've got to accept that that's what's going to happen, that's coming, and then embrace that. If you really hate AI and you really hate the idea of it and you really want nothing to do with it, like, it's fine, retire as fast as you can, try to or get into another industry where it's like 100% about people and not about AI. But otherwise, like, I just think you have no choice on this anymore. Just because I can see what I can do, and I can see what's possible and like what other people are doing. And it's just like, having been through this with mobile, having been through this with internet, having been through this with these art things, like it's just coming. And anybody that was thinking that they could just avoid using art applications, coming up into the 2000 and those areas, like they're out of work for if they just stuck to that. So let me get into now a little bit the specifics of what you're probably doing wrong with getting a result. So first of all, you need to use the right tool for the right job. So all AIs are not created equally. They're not all going to give you as the equivalent work. And learning which model is good for which type of work is quite important. And that's something which does take that is a good project for to have your junior people do, is to make sure that you have like an overview of each of the models and what they're good at and what they're particularly excel at. I'm working on an overview of that. I'm hoping to get that up before too much longer here, but from what I've used, I think OpenAI tends to be quite broad in general as a good model for many things, especially at the higher tier level of things. I think that's kind of a safe bet for a day-to-day thing. I typically use Grok for day-to-day. I don't think it's as good as OpenAI for most things. I don't use reasoning models, but they have a use for that. They can be quite powerful. So if you think about like, okay, first of all, just make sure you know which model you're using for which thing. Like Gemini, the research thing is fantastic. The Grok might be good for like day-to-day questions or kind of search-related things. OpenAI might be good for like your like a lot of your general work. Claude and Anthropic is probably the best overall model. It's like very pleasant to work with. It's like very, I think it's just well tuned, that model. And it's doing more and more things. But when you're looking at more advanced work, probably the biggest problem that you have is just how you start out. So the thing that surprised me about how my wife was using it was just how like she would just kind of write and just ask it a question like you would to somebody else. And that's logical and it makes sense, but you're not likely to get a good result. You can ask one of your employees like, hey, can you go and research this topic? And they've got like this, they've been around you, they've been around what you're doing in your office. They've got like such a huge amount of knowledge and experience in their heads that when you ask that kind of question, they understand a lot more around it that an AI just simply can't. So if you ask AI the same thing, it doesn't know what's important to you. It doesn't know what are you focusing on internally. It doesn't know like how that's relevant. It doesn't know how it integrates in with anything that you're doing or why you might even be asking it. Now, your employees may not know everything. That's fine, but they know a lot more than the AI knows. So when you're asking the AI questions, like you've got to like create documents and create kind of background on things, because an AI is what's called stateless. So it means it doesn't remember, it's not going to really remember everything that's happening between interactions, especially if you change and create like a new chat with it. If you've been using it for weeks and weeks and weeks on a particular topic, it's going to be able to look back at what you've talked about in that chat, and then it's going to have some context for that. But it doesn't have any context outside of that. And if you started a new chat with it each time, or if you quite often are setting new chats, then it's just like it starts from zero. So you need to create documents as you're moving along. You need to have either the AI write it for you or write yourself or have somebody in your team write it. But just to make sure that like as you're using AI, that you're feeding it, like giving it a clear idea of what are those things that are important. And it's anyway good documentation to have. So you just want to just have something which is like very factual, like, to the point, and kind of just continue to build that out as you're using it. And then give that to the AI initially in your conversation. I very often have a prompt which might be, it might be 2 or 3 pages long of what I'm trying to do in a particular topic. And then each time that I start a new chat, I'll just give it that document. And then as I go along, I'll just continue to update it to make sure that it's really clear what you're doing with it. So that's probably just of like the first reason why you might be having quite a poor result with an AI is just because you are not giving it enough information to actually help it to get what you want. It's not telling it clearly enough of what result that you want, how you would like it to do it, what kind of insights you want to go into it, how you want it structured, like, what are the processes around it. Even the smartest person in the world, like God level intelligence, unless it's truly omnipotent to know everything of your mind, it's not going to be able to just like figure things out for you. And something I've said over and over again is like once once AI is so smart that it can do all of the thinking and all the planning and structure everything and understand everything, like we're not necessary in all that anymore. Like if we're not using the tool and working with the tool, like if we expect it to do all the thinking for us, then it will do all the thinking for us, and we are not needed because we're just like an extra expense, like an unnecessary expense that if it can do all the thinking. So the way that AI will be able to change the world but still help humans to be relevant with it is that we're using it as a tool, that we're with our intelligence and its intelligence, that we're doing more rather than that we can like put the thinking over to it and like just offload all of the hard work and everything over to it. If we do that, we're just not necessary anymore. So don't do that. So that's the first thing, is just like building the prompts. Don't be so simplistic. Don't just assume that it can read your mind because your employees read your mind, so to speak. It looks like they're reading their mind. They're really not. But that they don't assume that it's like just a member of your team. Assume that it's like that it's starting from zero, that it's starting like a new employee, a very, very smart employee, very, very capable employee, but it's really just like somebody brand new to the project. Every time that you start a new chat with it, that's what you're facing. So make sure that you're thinking like, okay, how do I get this new team member up to speed as quickly as possible? So prompting usually is going to require like a lot more context, a lot more insight into it. Okay, so the second thing here is you don't want to use AI like as if it were just a member of your team in Slack. Like it is not just someone there to answer questions, although it does that, and you can do that. Of course, you know how to do that type of thing, I'm sure, and that's probably the principal way that you use it. You want to keep in mind it's a tool, and you want to use it like a tool and to think about the inputs and the transformation and the outputs. That's just like very, very typical thing for for any kind of systems or any kind of machines. If you want a good result out of it, you have to think about like what it is that you want out of it, and then what does it need what kind of inputs do you need in order to get that result, and then the transformation that it makes in the middle. So from a work perspective, like I won't get into any kind of coding things or into building scripts or things like that, but if you just think about like the kind of like text-based transformations you need or image-based things that you need. So first, let me talk about images. Images, typically, I have not had a good result with any of the like standard base models. Like just asking for Grok to do a picture, or for the OpenAI and all those ones. Like I've not used any of the materials that come out of frontier models. I think they're just like really, really poor at anything that's actually useful. But I have had very good results, and I use often more specialized tools that can generate AI, and then tools like that can do like edits and things like that. Like I guess they'll get better. I mean, Grok just released this new tool of being able to like edit a photo, so that'll probably be better. But from what I've seen, just any kind of frontier model, like the standard thing, does not do a good job of generating images that are useful. But that's still the same kind of problem that you deal with of inputs, like trying to work with the prompts until you get what you want, and then like that's transformation in the output that you want. From a text perspective, you can think about this from presentations, you can think about it from research, you can think about it from just trying to like create marketing copy in or copy for any type of thing. So let me take an example. I'm working right now on creating a more sophisticated emailing system. And so how do I think about that? So I think, all right, there's the image aspects of it, which I want to be separate. Then there's the copy within it. I need to figure out first the structure of the email, of the variations of the structure of the email, and then there'll be like that copy part of things, and then there'll be a part of it which is converting what this will be course structure material into the different sections within the email. So the way I think about that is I think, okay, I want to give it really, really specific instructions. So the prompt is going to say like, these are the three different structures that you can actually output the copy in. So it can be like, a headline with a paragraph with bullet points, or it can be just a paragraph or multiple paragraphs, or it can be just bullet points, and so on. And so I'll give it that instruction as to what type of output it can do, and then I will then I will start putting that into into production, and I'll give it the topic and kind of the details of a particular course, and then it will do the transformation, and I'll see how that actually like will automate the creation of those emails. There's a lot of other things that have gone behind it to try to set up the system so that they can create this automation, but like that specific part of it, I'm making it into a very, very small and specific prompt that it needs to follow. Now, I could just say, hey, create me an email about this course and here's the topic. And then when I get the result, like, maybe 1 out of 10 will be useful, maybe 0. And then I'll think like, oh, this doesn't work well. This thing's not very good. But that's like exactly the type of thing that I think most people are doing is like saying, oh, do this for me. Like as if it can just read your mind and read everything with the company and come up with like a great result, but it won't. So that's really what you need to do is to think about your processes, look at how you're working, look specifically at where you can insert AI. Don't think that it can take over everything for you. Give it very specific instructions. Look specifically at the inputs into it, look at the transformations, the outputs. And then within that, like once you kind of get that set up correctly, it's going to give you much better results than you can get from almost anyone except for maybe the highest and best people on your team. And if the AI actually has the best persons on the team's work to use as a base, it'll consistently give you results which will be like they're going to be somewhere at that level. So I think that's probably that just looking at that, like, don't think so simply. Don't think that you can read your mind. Give it more instructions. Have better prompts. Think more in terms of systems. And then I think the last thing I would mention in this context, so there are other things, but the other thing that I think is often not done at all when working with AI is thinking that AI is they're built on getting data from many different places and then doing things with it. So the training data is massive, and it has like a lot of variety to it, a lot of different kind of materials that have gotten it to where it's at. So you're asking it to do something, and then it just kind of has to guess what type of result that it wants, like what your output is. But you probably have something in mind as someone who's been working for a long time as to what quality is. Now, it's unfortunate if you haven't spent your whole life collecting like examples of what quality work is, then that's unfortunate. But who does that? Like, I don't know. I certainly have kept a lot of things that I think are important, but I didn't really like have like a drive full of like these are the best things that I could imagine. I wish that I had, and now I start looking at that when I find something which I think is like really exceptional, then I'm going to keep it and put it to the side. So because you need to be able to tell the AI, this is the input that you're going to get, and the output that I want should be at this level or like this. So if you go through and have your team or a department or the managers and things like that, if they go through and like get you the example of like the best, let's say the 10 best, 20 best, 100 best examples of writing or presentations or designs or anything, just what are the best things, that should be part of your prompt. It should be like, this is what I'm looking for. I want an output, and the structure and the system is like that, but the output, the quality of the text, the copy, the quality of the writing, the quality of the code, the quality, whatever it is, give it examples of the things which you found to be best so far, and then continue to work on it until so you can explain why it's the best. Because it's one thing, it'll look at it and then it might get somewhere in the right universe, but then you might have to start in your document, in your prompt, you might need to explain to it exactly what makes it the best, what part of it or what aspects, or how do you describe why it's the best, so it can see, okay, it's not so much the specific wording, it's more like the tone of it, or the way that it's a little bit funny, or the way that it's like the way that it's structured, or the how systematic it is, or just like those different things are equally important. So okay, well, I hope that is helpful. So I've set up my school community, and so if you're a senior person, if you're a senior executive, if you're somebody who's like still struggling to figure out this whole AI thing, come over. It's free. I'm just kind of seeing who might be out there that might be having these problems. And come over and search for Learn to AI on school.com. I'll put a link in the description. and I'd be happy to look at what things you're working on and see if there's a way to help you move forward in AI. I'm also going to put some projects over there that you can work on. Things can kind of give you a better understanding of how to do these things. And always happy if you have some comments about these things. Feel free to leave it down below. All right, bye.